Hello again everyone, welcome back to Tasting Beer with me, Paul, and to all my friends. Today we are going to try a few beers, not too sure what, but let's find out. Continue watching. And now I'm going to try a Scottish Strong Ale, because I've been wanting to try this one for a while. They tapped it on the weekend. Scottish Strong Ale. It's this one, 7.8%, so admittedly not the strongest of strong ales or wee heavies, or however we want to describe the Highland malty ale. Not very big on hops, these beers, at all. They're all malted. I mean, there's a tiny bit of hops in there, as it is, it's a beer. But they more focus on the specialty malts, crystal malts, and they bring out really not quite savoury flavours, but you're pushing towards like dried fruit. I can already smell fig here. Like coming up, fig and raisin coming through the glass. Caramel and biscuit, like almost like an Anzac biscuit vibe to it. Sweet, savoury, but I'm picking up those roasted malts as well. I've been looking forward to trying this one, and it hasn't disappointed. It's a lovely colour.
What makes it Scotch?
What makes it Scotch? Well, the Scottish strong ales tend to come from the malts that come from the UK, and the malting processes that were used with whiskies quite a lot. They'd use different specialty malts in small amounts in whiskies, and people had the bright idea to instead of making a whiskey out of it, to put it into a cask and make a beer out of it. Generally, when they're making these big, heavy, when you're making a malt accentuated ale, which is 10-12%, that's what they were making to make the wash for whiskies. You wanted a heavy ABV wash to put through the stills, but there's nothing stopping you from putting that wash into a barrel and carbonating it. And this is how you end up with Scottish strong ales.
What's it what?
A wash is what you would call the fermentation to put into a whiskey. So you're basically making a beer without the hops, and you're making it up to, and you're not carbonating it either. You're just fermenting it, getting it up to 10, 12, 13%, sometimes even higher, and that's what you're putting through the still. They call it a wash in stilling practices because it separates it from the wort that we would use in beer, even though kind of technically it's the same thing. Wort in beer is going to be cask carbonated. A wash is going to be fully fermented through and then put through a still. There's no point putting a 4-5% beer through a still. You have to just keep doing it and going over and over again. Whereas if you make something that's 12, 13%, you're going to get more economical, more bang for your buck.
So if ales have, like you were saying, ales generally use more malts, what then makes, so IPAs using more hops, how can they still fall on this?
Well, it's an they're using an ale yeast, and it's using a pale malt. So pale malt, ale yeast, it's still a pale ale, although it's Indian as well. There's a whole lot of convoluted history behind what exactly is Indian pale ale. I won't go too much into detail. Maybe we can do another video just on the history of an Indian pale ale. A lot of people really think it comes from the over hopping and the British India shipping company that would take beer, and they needed beer to last before it got over there, because the beer would sour, so they'd make them higher in ABV, and they'd put all the hops into it, the dry hopping technique, because the hops would the lupulin in the hops actually acts as a preservative. You can use it for, and it's a good antiseptic as well. You can use hops for wounds and for things like that. They have been used traditionally like that. So that's where the Indian pale ale came from. But there's also a lot of history as to I guess the machinations politically as to how they got the beer there, and that's where it kind of gets a little bit convoluted.
What about West Coast IPAs? There's a couple of them.
West Coast IPAs. Well, West Coast, they are generally heavily hot. Like West Coast can be like once dry hopped, twice, thrice dry hopped. I've even had quadruple dry hop West Coast. And that dry hopping, and they also use a lot in the boil as well. Basically, to me, West Coasters need to be like high IBUs, like very, very bitter. And the crystal malts, the specialty malts that they put in there, act as a balance. That sweetness with the bitter kind of give you the impression that you're not drinking something, almost like you're drinking a English bitter, which is kind of low in alcohol compared to a West Coast, but because of all the dry hopping and the crystal malts, you can push a West Coast up to 7, 8, 9%, and it's got a bite to it. Like they're maybe bite's not the right words. They're full-bodied, and the bitterness really, really lingers. But they to me generally they have to be bitter, and they have to have a certain amount of crystal malts in them. So let's it's from Capital. Let's give it a try. They call this one a new wave. This one's quite punchy. The hops that they've used come through very strong. Peach, passion fruit, maybe even passion fruit and lychee. I'm definitely picking up lychee as well. So let's give it a it's right there, that bitterness that hits on the back palate. Now, admittedly, this one doesn't have some of the darker crystal malts that like traditional ones from the States will show. It's definitely got the bite though. It's got that nice bitterness. This one is okay. It is 7%. I would not think I'm drinking a 7% beer here, and that's the beauty of West Coast to me. You can pump them full of alcohol, because you've just gone to town with the hops and some of the specialty hops they use as well, especially over in the States. They're a good beer style to try out new varieties of hops, to see what they can and can't do in the boil and also in the dry hopping process. I'm going to be honest, I'm not actually sure what hops that Capital have used on this one. It's probably quite a few, but I'm definitely picking up the passion fruit. There's lychee there, and that mango peel, that mango skin. Not like fresh mango, but just that skin. As you go past one in the shops, you're like, I smell mangoes. And when you walk around the shops, you're like, there's mangoes around somewhere. Kind of like banana as well. Like when you walk around, it's like someone's peeled a banana. And it's like it's not the fruit, it's the skin. That's what I'm picking up there. I really like it. That would go well in a Nipah as well.